Hey, everybody, good morning or good evening or good whatever. Happy Show Tuesday from Tokyo, Japan. It's number 64. We're talking shochu again, as always. And with me today are two special guests from various parts of the world. I don't know how it looks on your screen, but on my screen in the middle is Jake Tennenbaum, who is in New York City right now. Good morning, Jake. Good evening, Jake. Good night, Jake. How you
Hello,
doing?
Christopher. It is a
Hey.
pleasure to be on the show as an actual guest rather than a background character outside of a bar.
That's right. Last week you did make a sneak guest appearance, kind of cheeky little shifting into the side of Steven's camera. But today we're going to actually get to meet you for real. We'll do the introductions in a moment. I want to also say hi to Maya Aley, who's on the right side of my screen. Maya's in Kagoshima. Hi, Maya.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. You will remember Maya from several previous. Uh, she jumps into a lot of episodes. Sometimes she's a pinch hitter. Sometimes we do the Kagoshima corner, and that's kind of her specialty. And I think it's going to be fun to juxtapose the experiences from different parts of the world vis-a-vis introducing shoju, aomori, other koji-based spirits to people who are not familiar with them and in different contexts. So before we move on, let's get some quick self-introductions. Jake, let's go back to you first. Can you tell us a little bit about who, what, where, when, why, and how you are?
These days I am the U.S. account specialist for Hunkaku Spirits, so I get to work with Shochu quite a bit here in the States, which is a lot of fun. Introducing people to the category a lot. I myself am a relative newcomer to Shochu. I think before taking on this role, I think I'd only had Shochu probably once. And I'm sorry to say I don't remember the brand, but I do remember it was an emo.
Oh, okay.
Um, but yeah, my background before Shochu is a little bit more in whiskey. You might be able to see a little bit behind me. There's some more tucked underneath. I'm not going to get into the whole assortment, but yeah, no, I drink. I tell people about things they should be drinking, and yeah, that's about it.
That's a good Jake Tennenbaum in a nutshell. Yeah, I've been talking with Jake several times a week since a little over a year ago, when we started Honkaku Spirits in New York. So this is good to have you on, and for everybody out there, please remember the name Jake T, because he's going to be on probably a lot more in the future. And he's one of the, outside of Japan, one of the foremost authorities on shochu, and he did that in very short order. He's got a memory like a damn sponge. Thanks, Jake, for joining us. We're going to come
Thank
back once
you.
we get into the booze news in a second. Maya, can you remind everybody who you are?
Who am I? I forget. I don't know. It's early in the morning. Um,
I woke
uh,
Maya up at a little bit, like 28 minutes before she normally gets up.
yeah, I usually wake up at 9:58 just in time to turn on my phone and wake
Oh,
up to
watch
watch
this.
this.
Watch us. That's awesome.
um, so I'm Maya. I live in Kagoshima, Japan. I've been here for 10 years last month. I what do I do? I translate and interpret, and I work at a bar, a shucho bar, and I have people drink shochu all the time, except now because we're closed because life.
Uh,
Uh,
uh, again.
again, closed again. Um, I don't know. What else do I have to say
Yeah,
about
no,
me?
that
That's all.
I think that was pretty good. Also, yeah, somebody who I talk to every week, and somebody who, from a shochu perspective, from a friendship perspective, I'm quite close with. So that's why one of the reasons why we keep seeing Maya on the show. That's why we always talk about Maya. And Maya, is being humble. She works for one of the best shochu bars in the world called Roku, Roku, which is in Tenmonkan in Kagoshima City. And if when you are able to get to Kagoshima, you should absolutely go there. She's running the show there, and it's a great place to go if you're a complete novice, if you're a veteran, whatever, anywhere in between. It's a good place to go to find new things. And she's always got the newest stuff that's happening in Kagoshima. That's basically a given. So that's often, I'm just like, okay, well, I saw all this stuff on Instagram that's clearly come out in the past week. Where's one place I can go to try all of it? right now tonight, well, just go to Roku and Maya will set you up. So great, this is fun. I like this trifecta setup, a meeting of the Shochu minds from various time zones. There's a 13-hour difference between us. Let's just bust straight into our regular first segment, which is booze news, and this is where we share anything and everything related to the industry that could be of interest to anybody who cares about alcohol in general and shochu in particular. Do you have anything going on?
Well, I mentioned in my intro, but this is not new, and this is not happy news. But so Kagoshima is back under semi not lockdown as of Monday. So
Uh-huh.
alcohol service until 7 p.m. Everything, bars and restaurants closed at 8. So for 2 weeks.
So
So
that basically cuts your bar out of it, just
yeah, we
forces you
open
out
at
of business.
7:30. So I was like, well, we're closed. Okay.
Yeah,
But
sucks.
we might get man and bullshit. We might get quasi state of emergency, which means no alcohol at all. So the fact that we
Mambo.
can still serve alcohol is still good. And there's
That's a
people
plus.
we have people come in like from Tokyo on holiday to get away from the craziness of Tokyo where Christopher is. And they're like, "Oh, we can't drink here either." I'm like, "Watch the news."
Welcome to Kagoshima. Damn it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's certainly news. All right.
Yeah.
Jake,
So
you got anything else? Maybe something. Do you have anything happy?
No,
No.
no. I'm trying to think if there's been any interesting booze news in my part of the world recently, and well, I guess I guess I do have good news, and that's no news.
Sure. What about I'm
Cool.
flying to the States next week. We've got a big
Well,
event
that's
next week. You want to
news.
tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that? What's the big event?
So we've got Bar Convent Brooklyn coming up in
Yay!
Brooklyn on the 17th and 18th, which is very exciting. There was no Tales of the Cocktail this year, so this really is one of the only big spirits-focused events in the U.S. this year, and people are gearing up for it. I'm hearing a lot of buzz.
Yeah.
People are excited. Tales of the Cocktail is kind of infamous for being for getting a little rowdy, especially after hours. So I'm interested to see if Bar Convent Brooklyn is going to end up sort of taking over that role, or if it's going to stay a little bit more tame as it tends to in the past, at
Yeah,
least
it tends to.
relatively speaking.
Hmm. And
does
it
the
seems like
convent?
Bart.
Oh, does the convent? Does it mean short for convention, or does it actually have anything to do with the convent?
I
Because
believe it's
I'm
short for
curious.
convention, but
I
it
believe it
comes
is too.
from so this series, the first one is Bar Convent Berlin.
Right.
And I don't know if it's something to do with how the Germans like to say convention, maybe. Christopher, you're the resident polyglot. Do you know any German?
I did study German, but that's still a
Of
secret. I'm not
course.
actually letting that one. I'm not gonna bust any of that out. But I
Uh-huh.
think you're right that it was a decision made for the inaugural event in Berlin. And basically, if you're a city or a location that starts with B, you have a chance to host one of these things because there's a bar convent Brazil as well. So
Oh.
I'm just waiting for the bar convent Bahamas, and then I will be right there. But yeah, I guess convent is not related. It's not the Catholic religiously thing.
Because
It's
it seems like they're creating new meanings of the word if it was. Maybe it was
yeah,
held in a
it's
former
it's definitely
convent. I
not.
had all
It's
sorts
not
of
like
ideas.
a
Oh,
convent.
how great would that have been?
That,
What a
that's an
venue.
interesting thing. That's
Yeah.
that's a future Halloween theme bar convent, I suppose. So
Yeah.
Jake, what are we going to be doing at BCB 2021?
Well, first off, Hunkaku is going to have a very lovely booth, nice corner spot, so you'll have an easy time finding us if you happen to come visit.
You can charge your smartphone. We'll make sure you
Yes, you
can
can
charge your
come charge your
smartphone.
smartphone. You can meet the wonderful Christopher Pellegrini and Stephen Lyman, Bruce Gearhart. If you're lucky, our logistics guy, Craig
Craig Fish,
Fisher, who
the
is
handsome one.
just the sweetest person you will ever meet.
Very true.
And if you're very unlucky, you might run into me.
Whatever.
But so we have our table, and we'll be pouring samples of a couple of our shochu as well as Takamine Koji whiskey. It's really kind of our debut event as far as as far as these sorts of things go, which is very exciting.
It's an all hands on deck type of affair, really. It's like the entire
Whole
The whole
team is
crew.
team.
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think what's most exciting is on the second day, on that next Wednesday, the panel hosted by Steven with special guests Christopher Pellegrini, Garrett Oliver of Brooklyn Brewery, who is just a legend and an absolute joy to hear speak on literally any topic you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a legend in the New York bartending scene, Kenta Goto of Bar Goto and Goto Niban. So it should be a really awesome panel. I am so disappointed that I won't actually get to see it because I'm going to be working the booth. But hopefully,
Sorry,
someone
man.
will. Hopefully, someone will
Your
take a
bosses
recording.
must be jerks. Your bosses must be jerks. Not letting you go see the
Who
panel.
are those
What jerks?
buttheads? Well, maybe, yeah, I don't know. We may need some softball questions, so maybe we can find a way to get you in the audience.
We'll see.
Take
Okay,
shifts.
so that's news. Unfortunately, the BCB is really only open to the trade and the media, so it's not something that you can just waltz up to and grab a ticket. They're gonna check your bona fides, and they actually do work. They put several filters in there to make sure that it's trade only. So just regular Shochu enthusiasts, sorry. However, there will be other things going on next week in New York that we're planning to do, and one or more of those events may be happening at Rule of Thirds in Brooklyn. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. If you check the Honkaku Spirits Twitter or Instagram feeds, probably Twitter most likely will be updating the whereabouts of those events, and you'll be able to participate a little bit more freely if you're not in the trade.
Yeah, hopefully you're already following us, and if not, you should.
Yeah.
And if you're in the New York area, or if you ever find yourself in New York and you want a fantastic spot to eat, do yourself a favor and go follow Rule of Thirds on Instagram as well. Let me pull up their handle real quick so I'm giving you the right information. But really fantastic Japanese restaurant that focuses on, rather than what a lot of the places in New York do, shipping stuff in from Japan, they try their best to make the most of local ingredients and work them into traditional Japanese recipes. And they are just phenomenal. Really great shochu selection, sake selection. And
Yeah, they do.
I recently heard someone really just entirely enamored with their natural wine selection too, which is something I haven't dipped my toe in yet, but apparently they do a fantastic job, and from what I've seen, it sure looks like it.
Yeah, really, really good folks, and who have been super supportive. So we're excited to take it to the next level with them. I haven't actually met that team yet. I'm the only one because I'm the only one who's still over here getting a PCR test this afternoon, and then I'm excited to finally be able to get in there. Rule of Thirds, legendary
you guys will
place
definitely
fight.
get along. And their Instagram is Thirds, THIRDSBK. Thirds BK.
Thirds BK. Okay, so from Brooklyn. Thirds Brooklyn. Gotcha. Thirds BK. So you heard it here first, literally. I don't think any of these events have been announced. They're in the works right now. But we anticipate at least one guided tasting, and the food, as Jake said, is phenomenal. So anyway,
I'm
cool. I
jealous.
think
I want to go.
Well, you can come.
Online stream.
Next time you're in town.
Yeah, we can stream you in, maybe.
I think we should.
FaceTime me in.
There you go. So we do have, let's see, just a couple of questions in the comments. I want to address this one first and foremost because it kind of leads us into what we're going to be talking about today. How are we going to get Honkaku Spirits into the outer provinces here in the U.S.? Jake, you're the account specialist, so what's the deal in terms of, at least for us, and we're being very biased right now, but we can speak more generally about shochu availability and awamori availability in the United States. But Jake, what's your answer to that question?
Well, Chris C., if you would let us know what state you're in, we can either recommend some spots that have some of our products, or if we're not currently distributed there, we do have a few of our retail partners that ship nationwide. And if you just want to make it easy, feel free to, shoot me a message, Jake Tennenbaum, and I will help you find a retailer that either has whatever you want in stock. I can help recommend a product for you. And if no one that ships currently stocks it, well, I'll just take care of it. But
I'm going to take the liberty of sharing my screen so that I can show which one is it, Chrome tab or window? Window? It is window, okay. So if you were to mosey on over to our website, which is, of course, honkakuspirits.com, then there's an interesting little feature here that, for instance, let's say we look at Kana, which is, can you see me switching to the Kana screen?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So right here, this button, find a retailer near you, this is GPS centric. So if you click on this now, naturally, this is going to take me to a map that's showing Tokyo, and that we don't we don't distribute any of our products in Japan at this point. But it's going to GPS locate to wherever you are, or up here in the upper left, you can add a zip code to anywhere in the States. And if you happen to be in one of the markets that we're in, and we're still young, obviously, then it'll take you wherever that happens, wherever you want to be. So I'll stop sharing now, but honkakuspirits.com, I think, yeah.
He said he's in Tennessee.
In Tennessee? Oh,
Tennessee.
that's interesting. That's very interesting. We are
Stay
not
tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned, exactly. We are not currently there, but we are going to be there hopefully soon. Tennessee is an interesting state because it's divvied up into four distinct markets, really, but we may have a solution. So we stay tuned. All right. And yeah, and then again, Chris C has a lot of the intel. Yes, we are with Weinbo, and we are technically in North Carolina, although we haven't had a whole lot we haven't made a lot of inroads there yet, but it's pending.
Yeah, Tennessee, unfortunately, is one of the trickier states. A lot of retailers won't ship there because they really kind of crack down on that. So hopefully we'll have some stuff for you in market soon. Otherwise, it depends on where exactly in Tennessee, and then I might be able to send you somewhere across the border to pick up some good stuff in a neighboring market.
Make a booze run.
Nice. One other, back to Maya. Does Maya have any involvement with Honkaku Spirits? And this one is yes and no. Moral support, obviously. And then also a lot of, actually, Maya does a lot of localization work for us. So we do actually team up on a lot of things, working together to liaise with potential suppliers and current suppliers and that sort of thing. I don't know, Maya, if you wanted to
boots on the ground in Kagoshima, more or less.
I think that's a good way to put it. That's a very good way to put it. Also, often a great brainstorming partner, idea generation, and just
bouncing
generally
things
thinking
off.
about bouncing. Yeah, good sounding board. Also, a good coach on how to approach difficult situations in a Japanese business context. So, we had a lot of really valuable conversations, basically on a weekly basis. And so yeah, to answer that question, thanks for asking. Yeah, we're all connected here, and it's all about shochu. One final comment here from Chris Caldwell, and he's saying, I get all my good stuff from Umami and Sake, and that's both good resources for all the folks out there if you're looking to shop online, and you happen to be in a state that doesn't block interstate shipments, and unfortunately I'm from a state that does, Vermont.
Well, if Chris C is referring to Umami Mart,
must be.
They do carry a couple of our products, so that would be a really great resource if they don't mind shipping to Tennessee.
And you can just check the Umami Mart website, and they will tell you very clearly. There's a list of like 5 states that they don't ship to. Vermont's one of them. I don't remember what the others are. But
I've used them to
okay,
ship a wedding present from here. I was like, I have to send something to a friend.
that's a
So I
good
ordered
idea.
online from Japan to
Mm.
ship it over there.
It's like the
Send
FTD of
some wedding
shochu.
shochu. Yeah.
There you go. I love it.
And
Okay,
I
well
just since we were
oh, go
talking
ahead.
about boots on the ground in Kagoshima, Christopher, and I hope I'm not getting ahead of us too much here, but in my glass, I have revisiting a product I haven't tasted in a little while. This is Goro,
Oh, nice.
Oh.
which is
Goro.
this is Kagoshima, yeah?
Yeah,
See,
very.
and I was just talking to Steven earlier today about terroir in Imojocho,
Okay.
and I feel like with Kagoshima emo, it is particularly strong. And look, I'm not saying that I've got this great palate and I can pick out the particular variety of emo at this point or exactly where it's from, but I
Mhm.
feel like Kagoshima emo in particular, there's this wonderful earthiness to it. You get the ash of the volcanic soil, and God, this really is just lovely stuff.
Yeah, Goro's great. Yoshinaga out on what is it?
Shimokoshi.
Shimoko
Yeah,
Shi-
Shimokoshiki.
Shimo on the lower Koshiki Island, and the water there is, they call it that Hotaru Sui, right? The firefly water,
Yeah.
Mm.
which is basically an indication of how pure the spring water is, because apparently, and I don't know anything about fireflies, but what I'm told is that they only congregate around the cleanest of water.
Yes.
So yeah, it's special stuff, and we're working on that particular brand to bring it to the States soon.
Team trip to Koshiki. Team trip to Koshiki. A good idea. Great.
Count me
I
in.
think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. If they'll let us in there, now that we're all vaccinated and such, maybe they'll let the wall down for us. Before we're already 20 minutes in, and this is great, but let's seg into the main idea here, and we've already kind of gotten there. We're talking about locating good shochu and awamori wherever you happen to be in the world. And I think this is an interesting opportunity because we have, number one, in Jake, we have an actual sales specialist who is out there visiting accounts, visiting bars, bottle shops, restaurants, and trying to get them to do a tasting, sit down, think about shochu, and consider how it could be worked in onto the shelf, into a menu, into a cocktail. And then we also have Maya, who works at a really nice shochu bar that also has wine, just in case, because there are plenty of folks kicking around who just, even in Japan,
A
even in
surprising,
Kagoshima, there's a surprisingly large number of people, right?
a
Who just
surprisingly
don't
number of
really.
shochu makers who want to have wine for the evening.
Okay, fair
I'm like,
enough.
really? Okay.
How could they get sick of shochu?
I
I
don't.
think they're just in the mood for something else, and so we keep a couple bottles
It's a
for a
chance.
couple shochu shachos who always come in and want wine. So
That's interesting. Well, let's talk about this. When you're talking with somebody who is unfamiliar with shochu, the goal is to get them to try it. How do you approach that? And obviously, both of you, you're coming from obviously entirely different contexts, but the goal is the same. You just want them to enjoy it and have a second glass. How does that conversation start? What approaches do you use? What's your routine?
Well, I think one of the tools that I like to start with, just jumping in with someone at the ground floor, is I don't know. Do either of you know offhand roughly what the population of Japan is?
123,456,789 people. That's actually
lies.
pretty close. I'm off by like 3 million, but I'm pretty close.
Yeah,
I
but
just
it's like
I
I
always
think
just
it's
remember
one,
one,
two,
two,
three,
three,
four,
four,
five, six,
five,
seven,
six,
eight.
seven, eight, nine. There you go. That's
Yeah.
the population of Japan.
Well,
Sorry.
I tell people in the U.S. that shochu has outsold sake in Japan since what, 2002, roughly, right?
2000,
Somewhere
yeah,
around there.
thereabouts, 2003. Yep.
2003.
Hmm.
So 123 odd million people in Japan can't be wrong. So
No.
first off, if you don't know what the hell this stuff is, if all these people in Japan are drinking more of it than they're drinking sake, then maybe it's something that you should at least start to listen to the conversation on. That, and then I'll kind of go on and talk about how you have probably, in my opinion, one of the broadest and deepest spiritual traditions in the world. You've got a product which has been made for 500 plus years and can be made from all these different really interesting ingredients. More so than any other spirit, I think there really is a shochu out there for everyone.
Mm.
Look, if you don't like gin, you might be able to appreciate, and on the Japan Distilled podcast, you talk about some really great Japanese gins these days, which do tend to lean a little bit more citrus. So you might find a gin that agrees with you a little bit more, but it's still gin. If you don't like scotch, I can tell you, well, not all scotch is peated, not all scotch is heavily peated, and still you might not find something quite right because you've got a relatively narrow category, and with American whiskeys even narrower, in my opinion, and that's as someone with a lot of American whiskey
turkey behind you.
But with shochu, I mean, the sky is the limit. There really are so many different ways it can express itself, so many different ways of drinking it that are entirely appropriate too, because people do kind of get intimidated with some spirits where, I mean, I feel like especially whiskey, they'll hear someone says, well, you have to drink it neat, or you have to drink it with a cube, or you have to add a drop of water. Where shochu, because folks here don't really know too much about it, they kind of are able to see, all right, here's an opportunity for me to drink something and not feel quite as bad if I get it wrong, because there's not as much of an expectation for me to get it right.
Sure.
So it's unpretentious. It's anything you want it to be. Mm-hmm. It's extremely popular in Japan. And, well, I think my best argument is here, just taste some and let's go from there.
Just try it. Yeah. This is not what you expect.
Yeah.
Yeah, Maya, how about you?
Well, at the bar, we get a lot of people from outside the prefecture, like tourists from Tokyo or Osaka or wherever. Obviously not international people because of the world.
Not right now, yeah.
But, and the first hurdle is they've already found themselves in a shochu bar. So they've Googled something and found Roku or Ishizue, our sister bar, which is a little bit more famous, and found themselves wanting to drink the local spirit because they're in Kagoshima for whatever.
Right.
So the first hurdle, they might not know exactly what it is that they want, but they know they want to try something different. So that first hurdle has been cleared for me just by their presence in the bar at the counter.
That's a good point.
But my first question is usually what they're used to drinking normally. What is their usual go-to? Because that'll give me a lot of clues about what direction. As Jake said, there's so many possibilities, especially with even just sticking with emo in Kagoshima. You've got the fruity stuff, you've got the goro types, there's so many. So I need a couple more hints from the customer about what they prefer, and then try to kind of pick something a little bit similar to that, so it's not a totally new beast I'm putting in the glass in front of them. Usually.
Yeah, and I like that approach. I use that approach quite a lot, is to ask them what they drink at home, or what do they drink the most. And even if you do just stick to Kagoshima Imojochu, you can walk in there as a white wine drinker, as a beer drinker, as a tequila drinker, a mezcal drinker, and you could sit down at Roku at the bar and say that to Maya, I'm a rum drinker normally, and Maya would not be fazed, and she's like, she's got multiple options for all of those things, which is pretty cool considering it's just one ingredient. And like just off the top of your head, Maya, a couple of the new things that have come out maybe in the last month or two, what are Imojochu makers playing with? What are they tweaking to create new expressions right now?
Well, so something just came out last week, literally last Friday, I think, from Taikai over in Kanoya. Is
They're the
you
ones
might have
like
seen
the
it on
Kujira, the whale one, right?
the whale bottle, and that they make like a green tea expression as well. Um,
Oh yeah.
they have they created a collaboration with the fishery cooperation over in Kanoya, and to create a shochu called Kanpachino.
Oh, I saw
Kanpachi
that.
is greater amberjack. It's one of
Okay.
the local specialties of Kanoya. Kagoshima produces the number one volume of kanpachi in Japan, of fished farmed kanpachi. So they created this shochu to purposely so it tastes well, it pairs well with kanpachi.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
So it's whether it's grilled or sashimi, like so if it's on the rocks or with bubbles, maybe it'll go with sashimi. If you go oyawari, maybe go with a shioyaki, a grilled version. So they've specifically tailored it to pair with this particular local fish.
How
So
did they do that? Do you know? Was it a
lots
potato
of taste
varietal? Was
testing.
it yeah? Just they found the right temperature for the
Yeah.
fermentation or something, and then okay, yeah, they do. That's and they employed scientific help, basically, a university or something.
I think a lot of old men drinking. Is
Oh, the
that's
fishermen
scientific,
themselves.
right?
you know what?
um,
I trust old fishermen
yeah.
with my shochu much more than I trust the university. No disrespect to the universities, but I
Well,
think
they
old fishermen in Kagoshima know
Experience.
shochu much better.
fair
It's
enough.
experience.
And
Yeah.
Taikai Distillery, Jake, you'll love this. We'll have to make a pilgrimage because they do have on the second floor, I think they do have a shochu bar.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah,
It's a secret bar, a secret
Uh,
bar.
yeah, it's
But they have
isn't it
is
it's
there
the
a secret
company
knock?
canteen, I think normally.
yeah, yeah, they take their lunch breaks there.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
funny when you mentioned a fishery, I got worried for a second because um, I was just listening to the new episode of Japan Distilled talking about all these really interesting aromatic shochu,
Oh.
and I know that there's no fish that
fish is not an ingredient.
on the list of approved ingredients, but I did see there was some guy in I want to say Denmark or Germany, somewhere in Northern Europe, who, due to some legend about early Scotch being matured in casks that had been used for transporting fish, he did a herring cask finished Scotch,
Oh.
which is said to be one of, if not the worst whiskey ever made. It's called Fishki.
Fish.
So I got scared. I got scared for a second, but I think what these folks are doing sounds much more pleasant than that.
Yes.
And I know virtually no Japanese, but almost everything I know has to do with different types of fish. So I heard kampachino, and I'm like, oh, I actually know what that must mean. I actually know what that means. I think.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's funny. Fishki? That
fishki.
sounds
Fish cube.
Look it up.
sounds like an atrocity.
If you have a
Sounds like a
chance and you taste it, don't blame me.
sounds like a Polish
Oh,
appetizer.
that's interesting. Huh. Well, this is so basically both of you, if I can summarize a little bit here, you're obviously trying to demystify or reduce the barrier to entry for shochu. You're trying to intrigue people, especially in Jake's approach. You're trying to get them interested, almost like they're missing out on something. Um, and I don't know any other just to wrap this part of this before we get into the newly open segment. Any other things that comments or observations about introducing people to shochu that you've noticed?
I'll go. A lot of people don't know that they don't like shochu, or they think they don't like shochu because their grandfather drank it and they're like, I don't.
Oh, I
It's
see.
just it's just
Yeah.
like a preconceived notion of not liking. Here in Japan, obviously in the U.S., people don't have experience with it, but it's
Hmm.
just like, oh, I don't. No, that's not for me.
I
So
don't.
so yeah, kind of.
Where does that come from? The whole like, oh, my grandfather or my dad drank that, and I what's up with that stereotype? Because there's a whole generation of Japanese middle-aged Japanese folks that were exposed to that era.
Well, I think if you've ever seen the Japanese anime, like Sazae-san or Chibi Maruko, like those Saturday night cartoons, right? They're classic. They've been on TV for generations, right?
Yeah.
The dad or the grandfather is always drunk. Like he gets home from work and he's red in the face on the show. And so that's kind of the standard like Showa era stereotype of family life, I think, for better or for worse. And in Kagoshima, what they were drinking was not beer or sake, it's shochu and imo shochu. And especially until recently, it was pretty stinky shochu, like
Yeah.
not in a good way. Not
Unfortunately, it's
maybe
not.
not as bad as fish herring casks, but
Yeah.
Not quite.
but they didn't really take care of what kind of potatoes they were using and how much they were cleaning them, and
Right.
hygiene was not a thing, and whatever. You just kind of, it was basically industrial moonshine, I think, in many ways. So it didn't have this greatest flavor, but that's what kids grew up with. The drunk dad
That
or the
aroma.
drunk grandfather, like that's, and they're just kind of like, oh, that's gross. Like, why would I drink that? And they don't realize that the industry has progressed so far beyond that.
Since the
And
1970s, yeah, it's
yeah,
changed quite a bit. Yeah.
and so they
Yeah.
just still have this image. Or they went to Kagoshima University back in the days of when the word hazing doesn't exist here, but that's what it
Oh,
was. And they're
Yeah,
just
sure.
forced to drink tons and tons of shochu by the funnel, I'm sure.
Ugh.
So
That'll
I get people in
that'll
their
turn
30s
anybody
who
off, I
come
guess.
in, they're like, oh, I went to Kadai and I drank too much. I was forced to drink too much shochu as a university student, so
oy.
I traumatized.
Interesting.
So
I'm a
um,
Kadai student, and nobody's
well,
tried that on me yet.
they're
So
not
it would be
allowed to
interesting.
anymore. They
Christopher,
find
They're
you
not
get
allowed
wait
to.
until you come back to the U.S.
hazing.
The funnel
Hazing.
is on its way.
It's already been ordered.
Awesome. Oh, that's
So,
hilarious. Um, let's see. Here's a question from Brett, somebody who also has
oh,
a lot of experience talking about shochu in the U.S. market, and awamori as well. Have you had any success? Sorry, I'm not drinking. I know it sounds like I've been drinking, but I'm drinking OS1. This is my kampai drink. Introducing non-Japanese newcomers to imo, so sweet potato shochu, and he says his success rate is very low. Jake, you probably can speak to this pretty easily.
Well, not to brag, but my success rate is very high. And not to plug more Hunkaku products. And this isn't necessarily a specifically Hunkaku thing, but what I'm realizing is when you look at emo, I divide it into, I mean, there are all sorts of ways you could divide it, but two categories. There's modern profile emo and classic profile emo. And both of you are far more experienced with emo than I am. So if this sounds, if there are any issues here, please stop me. But I feel like Goro, a product that is a little more earthy, tastes a little more of emo, tastes more sweet potato, the skin of the potato, the volcanic ash. Those I think are gorgeous, but for some people I think they're a little less approachable than some of the products like Colorful. I mean, if we're talking what's in market in the US, Colorful and Mahoko, that are a little bit more floral, a little more fruity. They still have those emo characteristics. You still get the minerality of it, but just in terms of, objectively pleasant notes, I mean, ripe cherries and raspberries and white flowers.
Hibiscus, yeah.
Yeah, they're a little more approachable. So my recommendation for someone trying to get non-Japanese newcomers to shochu into emo is try and seek out those more modern emo. I don't know if you guys have any other recommendations for products in the U.S. right now that kind of meet that profile, or I mean other recommendations in general on how to get people into it. I think. Sorry, before I let you answer, I also think that Sodawari is a nice way to ease people into any
Bubbles.
category of shochu in general. You add bubbles into
Make
the
a highball.
equation. Yeah, and it is just so refreshing. So
Yeah,
I'll let you guys take it away.
that's interesting. Maya, how do you react to that with the modern? Is that the way to go?
well, yeah, I consider it more of a spectrum of so the fruity styles, the floral styles compared to the classic, as you said, emo. So I definitely, it depends. You need more tools in your toolbox.
Of course.
So I
Sure.
have 300 tools in my toolbox at the bar, um, and I can choose amongst any of them. And so I have more options. So we
Right.
do have non-Japanese or living in Japan customers come, and it's it's not whether they're Japanese or non-Japanese. It's more of the thanks for ice coming.
You're welcome.
Um, but so we had there was a guy who came in. He was British, living in Tokyo with his partner who was Japanese, and she was the one who was more hesitant about trying shochu than he was last
Okay.
week. So they wanted to come to Roku because we also have wine, as you said, actually, Christopher. And she was put off by Ishizue because they only have shochu,
That is
and
true.
so they chose to come to Roku instead. But I ended up pouring her uh, flamingo orange on
Oh,
with
yeah.
soda. So
Hmm.
um, it's very tropical fruits and stuff like that. And she was like, "Oh, this is shochu," and then she wanted to have another one that was a slightly different flavor profile, right? So it's definitely about lowering. You want to do like the kiddie pool jump and not the 10-meter high jump from the
Yeah.
beginning.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Make it easy
So
for them. Let them just. It's true. And shochu in general is a chameleon, and Imojochu in its own right is the most diverse of the subcategories in the shochu industry. So even though it is all made with sweet potatoes, there's dozens of varietals of
yeah.
sweet potatoes, and there's tons of different types of yeast that are used, different fermentation temperature, all sorts of choices open to the people making the drinks that it's wild. The spectrum is growing actually as people get more and more creative and want to differentiate themselves. So we're just seeing all these new things all the time. Flamingo is a great example of a way to completely surprise somebody who has preconceptions or stereotypes about the category about what sweet potato shochu is, and you put that in front of them, they're like, "What? This is
Exactly.
an emo?" Yeah, so it's fun. And just to wrap this up, Brett, great question, and I know you're speaking from experience. I think there's also been a little bit of a change over the last 18 months. Maybe it's COVID induced. I'm not really sure, but people are open to new things. It's I don't know if you I think Jake, you probably noticed this. Just
Oh
people are
yeah.
like, hey, yeah, what's new? What's different? What am I missing? There's been an attitude or a paradigm shift almost. What is that correct?
Oh yeah. Well, I think early in COVID, what happened was when you had a lot of the lockdowns in the U.S. Um, liquor stores tended to be among the few establishments that were allowed to stay open. Um, and because people, for the most part, just wanted to get in and out of places, it really was just coal brands. It was categories that you were used to. Folks
Yeah,
weren't spending as much time really searching the shelves, trying to find something new, interacting with staff, getting recommendations, reading shelf talkers. So products like shochu in the early days of COVID really were getting no love in the US, but now we're at a point where people are just sick of drinking the same stuff that they were drinking all through lockdown,
mm,
and they're willing to broaden their horizons a little bit and move on to new things. And I have found that the response from buyers in the market these days, I mean, people are so excited getting something new in front of them
yeah.
versus just more of the same old.
It's a perhaps the dawn of a new era, and
I
hopefully
hope
we.
so.
I hope so too. I'm flying to the States on Friday, banking on that fact that maybe it's a new era. So yeah, very cool tangent there. I think that was good, and I all signs are pointing to a bright future as long as we all keep working hard to just educate, and get people trying shochu in a very um, safe space where they're not going to feel like they're being judged. They're not going to feel, as
Exactly.
you said, like they're going to get it wrong, like they should understand something, but they don't. So yeah, if we can set up those safe tasting environments, I think we're going to have a lot of new friends. So let's keep at it. We're going to move on because we're already. This has been an awesome conversation. We're at 45 minutes. Last segment, I don't want to forget, which is our newly opened one. Maya, can we start with you this time? Since we've been going left to right across my screen every
Okay,
time. So let's go right
I found a
to
bottle,
left this time.
and I think didum,
Oh wow, look at that. Dayame.
Diamond.
Nice.
So I think you guys, you and Steven and Christopher, you talked about the 40%, the release that's going to be out in the U.S. market. Is that
Right.
out yet? Question mark.
I'm not sure.
Out?
I'm not sure. That's a good
I
question.
haven't seen it, but they've actually been advertising through Bar Convent Brooklyn on Facebook. I think we're
Oh,
actually going to see them out there.
okay.
Ah,
Okay.
Yeah.
nice.
Cool.
So this is obviously the 25%, but because I just mentioned I serve flamingo orange and the kinds of fruity types of stuff. So this is probably the closest you're going to get in the meantime in the US once this becomes available to that kind of flavor
That
profile. So
profile.
yeah, it's very tropical and
Righty.
not
It's
and dayame is a traditional Kagoshima dialect word for dareyame. It's like the drink at the end of the day, but not a drink because it's never one drink. Um,
one drink. Let's have a drink.
yeah.
When did that happen?
So it's a pretty it's available nationwide here in Japan. It's made by Hamada, which is the single biggest producer in Kagoshima, which surprises a lot of people because they're like, oh, the big boys are making stuff like this too. So they have a
They
lot of
are.
marketing power behind. So the fact that they're even going to be in Brooklyn is kind of really cool.
It's
Um,
Yep.
exciting.
It is. It is.
so
It's
so
so good to see these big players really spending on the international market. There were only a
yeah,
couple that have done it for the past several years, and now there's more moving in, just seeing that there are opportunities. It takes some education, but if everybody's kind of moving in the same direction, we're going to move
yeah,
quickly. So
yeah.
this is
They've got like
good.
an
Yeah.
overseas branch in Tokyo, and I even did like an online tour, a couple online tour for them, um, out
Right,
of Denver, their hand
with your gimbal thingy, right?
with my gimbal, yeah, for the Hong Kong market actually. So
Cool.
they're progressive, and so even like a couple, they're helping the smaller people get noticed because they're using their big bucks to get shochu out
Yeah,
there. So
yeah.
yeah,
Okay. That's very cool. Good one.
yes,
Dayame.
I've got to say, when I saw their advertisement on Facebook, I got very excited seeing that another shochu maker was, investing in the U.S. market.
Yeah, it's nice.
And when I was exploring their website, which is actually a surprisingly well put together website for a shochu distillery.
Wonder who had
Um,
something to do with that.
they have money.
oh, um, they had a drink recipe on there for, I forget exactly what they called it, but what I would call it is a Ramos Emo Fizz, a Ramos Gin Fizz, but with Emo Jochu instead of gin.
Uh-huh.
And Ramos Gin Fizz is one of my absolute favorite drinks. And for those of you out there who don't know, it is a bartender's nightmare because it requires about 10 ingredients and 5 minutes of hard shaking.
Hmm.
Um, but it is delicious. The texture of it is amazing. To me, it tastes like a sweet tart, but it's creamy. It's spectacular. And since the first time I tasted some of these more floral leaning emo, I had kind of joked about a Ramos emo fizz, but I never actually considered making it just because it's so labor
It's such
intensive
a
and
pain in the
so
ass.
yeah. But they actually have a recipe for it on the site, and I think as soon as I can find a bottle of Diame here in the States, I'm gonna have to try and make that recipe exactly as they have it specced out because, I mean, I'm just excited to see if it's as good as I think it is.
So 40% is the one that's coming to the States, is that right?
Yeah.
There,
It's not even
40%?
available
That's
domestically.
yeah, and that's a inordinately high number for us emo jochu. It's above what it's normally tank proofed at. So or what we would say genshu non-diluted. So that's they must have cut it early or something. which says to me that it's going to be a little bit less. Maybe it's just gonna be pretty balanced and pretty smooth. It's gonna have enough of the aroma without the funk that tends to come in the tails of the distillate run. And if it keeps that lychee, that fruity aroma that the 25% does, which I'm sure it will, then it's going to be very, very fun for cocktails, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jake, what's your newly opened?
I think my most recently opened bottle, and I apologize. Should I grab my most recently opened shochu because
No, it doesn't have to be. It can be whiskey, or it
Armagnac?
could be Armagnac. Yeah. Wow.
So
A 98, huh?
this is I was so lucky to find this while I was out working the market with Steven. Um, DeRose is one of my two favorite Armagnac bottlers. So it's DeRose and L'Incantata. L'Incantata, their products tend to cost about double what it would cost to get the DeRose offering, but they are fantastic. I'm not saying L'Incantata is overpriced. I'm saying DeRose is far underpriced.
Yeah, that stuff is good.
And this particular one, it comes from actually my favorite domain, which is at least what DeRose calls it. It's Cusar La Salle, L'Incantata. They call them Lupi Bou, well, or at least for all their stuff after '93. But I'm not going to get into Armagnac.
Nerd alert.
But what I will say is that this is 100% Full Blanche, which is a kind of more pre-phylorexia style, or pre-phylorexia grape varietal. This stuff is, at least from what I understand when I speak to those privileged enough to drink some more 1800s vintages, this drinks a lot like some much, much older vintages.
Wow.
It's incredibly special, really difficult to find. And
How much did you pay for it?
This was actually, so I got this from Manly's Liquor in on the Lower East Side.
I don't know that account.
Really great shop. They're bringing in some shochu, and they're really excited to support the category.
I like them already.
The buyer there actually took one of Steven's shochu classes here in the U.S.
Oh, no
a
kidding.
couple of years ago. Yeah, so
Okay, that's
it is
fortuitous.
a small world.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this, believe it or not, I mean, for 1998, $90.
Ooh,
I don't know how that sounds as far as the Japanese market goes,
that
because
sounds
I've
like a
found
bargain to me.
I have found some crazy deals on things in Japan, but at $90, I was happy enough to buy 4. And
How many you got?
and my
How many are left?
I bought out all they had left at the store.
Of course.
If they had more, I would have bought more. But probably my all-time favorite Armagnac is this 1996 Cusard La Salle. So I was really pleased that the 98 is just about everything the 96 is. The whole
I
DeRose
was gonna say
line.
you're saying a lot of words I don't understand. Say they sound French.
They are
Maybe
French.
they
They are
do.
French. Lots
I
of
mean,
names.
I know like the bare minimum about Armagnac.
Yeah.
So
Armagnac.
All you need
losing
to know
me.
is that it's tasty, and no matter how much you drink, you should probably be drinking more, because it is. I mean, it really is.
After just shochu. After the shochu.
After shochu. As far as a barrel-aged spirit, it's probably my favorite these days, and what it shares in common with shochu is it is often single distilled.
Yep. Right.
Of course, it is usually well, not usually. It's single column distilled, so little different than single pot. But
A little different.
yeah, and the whole DeRose line is offered by Winebow in the U.S. So if you're interested in some really great Armagnac, look into DeRose, and have your local retailer ask for some.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to meet Mark in China
That's right.
a couple of years ago, Mark DeRose, and he, after a long day of tasting and judging, he outside during a break, he's like, "Psst, I got some good stuff." I was like, "Oh, do you? Okay, yes. Let's find glasses." And he had a couple of bottles of really remarkable things that, and we were just like, oh man, I can't go back in there and do any more work now.
Well,
But
hopefully
we
we'll be able
fortunately my
to.
table was done, so it turned out I was safe.
Hopefully we'll run into Mark sometime, either in the U.S. or in Japan, and we can introduce him to his spirit's, spiritual cousin.
Yeah, there you go.
Because
From this side of the world.
yeah, I
I like it.
suspect any real spirits enthusiast, no matter what you're into, you can at least appreciate Shochu and really have a lot of fun with the category.
Yeah, I totally agreed. And hopefully anybody out there that's listening still, thank you so much for tuning in for this very, very detailed, in-depth and broad-ranging episode of Shochu'sday. I'm sure all of you agree. There's so much to discover in the world of Shochu and Awamori, and I think these are exciting times. I mean, we got the big players are coming in. We got little players like Honkaku Spirits coming in, and I think there's going to be a lot of new variety, a lot of new discoveries, and a lot of movement in this world. So just to wrap it up, thank you everybody. Maya, thank you very much for joining us. Jake, thank you
For
very
waking
much
up
for joining
early.
Shochu'sday.
My
Yeah, for
pleasure.
waking up 28 minutes early, and to everybody out there, let's have a final kampai here. Um,
Comply with my
with my
bottle.
Christmas cup. To everybody out there around the world, from all of us in our various time zones, a very hearty and heartfelt kampai. Thank you.
Come by.
Kampai.